If your list building starts and ends with LinkedIn and Apollo, you're missing companies that no one else is reaching out to and leaving a completely untapped pool of prospects on the table. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 pillars as to why standard list building tools are leaving your best targets undiscovered, and the non-standard discovery methods we use to find the companies nobody else is reaching out to. I'm Bob Shu, founder of RevSync. I've built lists and campaigns for over 50 B2B companies across software, cybersecurity, and fintech. What you need to know is that the gap between what's on LinkedIn and Apollo and what's actually out there is much larger than you think. And the companies sitting in that gap are the ones your competitors have never touched. So let's dive into it. So let's talk about the first pillar your list is missing, the visibility problem. You're probably thinking list building is a data access problem, better tools, bigger database, cleaner exports, bigger lists. That idea is completely wrong. And that is why your list looks exactly like everyone else's. Okay, let me give you an example here. Let's say you have a client that only targets commercial cleaning companies or local services. A lot of commercial cleaning companies that are large or mid-size aren't even on LinkedIn. For example, I'll give you a company here called Sparkle Pro Cleaners. Now, these guys are doing over 10 mil a year, and they're pretty big and have a large team. And you may think that, oh, we can probably find these guys on Apollo or on ZoomInfo because they're quite big. Funny enough, if you try to find them on LinkedIn, because ZoomInfo and Apollo get their data mostly from LinkedIn, they don't even exist. If you go here and we search Sparkle Pro Cleaning, they don't even exist. This is not even the company. This is Sparkle Pro Caravan Cleaning Ltd. And this is completely different. It's a UK company. And this company is US based. So how are you going to reach out or get in contact with a company like this? Because if your client sells to commercial cleaning services, then these guys would definitely be your ICP. In this case, we would take a much different approach where we would scrape Google Maps with custom scrapers, or in this case, I'm showcasing Appify as a scraper tool that you can use. And you can put in a Google search keyword and it will scrape all the companies listed on Google Maps. And for this scraper that I'm showcasing right now, this is a Facebook scraper. So similar to Google Maps scraper, you give it Facebook keywords or Facebook search URLs, and it'll scrape all the companies that are outputted from that search URL. And that scrape output would sometimes include their generic support email as well. And then you can reach out via that method. So as you can see, if you're pulling lists from the same tools as your competitors are and wondering why your outreach feels very crowded, this is the reason. The list is the same. The contacts are also the same. And the inboxes of those contacts are already full of people who found them the same way you did. If you want us to show you what a non-standard list building system looks like for your specific ICP, grab some time with me with a link down below. So here's the second pillar, the discovery methods. Before we build any list, we ask one question. Where does this type of company actually exist that no one else is looking? Okay, so previously I showed you an example of Sparkle Pro Cleaning, a company that is large, profitable, and big, but does not exist at all on LinkedIn. And there's no way for you to find the contact info of their founder just through LinkedIn, Apollo, or even ZoomInfo. Now I'm going to dive into how we actually approach companies that don't target other ICPs that are typically on Apollo or on LinkedIn. So for example, if we have a company or a client that wants to target local businesses, in this case, medical clinics, but specifically wound care clinics, there's no way for you to even filter for wound care clinics on Apollo, ZoomInfo, or even LinkedIn search. For example, if you go to Clay right now and you want to search companies that are in wound care, you would just go to companies. If you build a company list, industries to include, you do wound. There's not even clinics. You can do medical probably. Medical practice. That's the closest probably we would be. And if you do that and you do a filtering for the US, you can see there's over 500,000 results. And these include probably hospitals and then a bunch of other types of medical service-based companies. But you want only wound care. So how would that work? Obviously, you could filter through 500,000 leads and burn thousands of dollars in click credits, or you could run a very targeted Google Maps scrape. So same thing as what I showcased here. Appify is a scraper tool that we sometimes use, but we often rely on our own custom scrapers because they're more reliable. And you can easily scrape Google Maps and you just put in your keywords like the scraper here. You put in a keyword here for a region and you can scrape all the wound care clinics in that area. And you can see the example here is our output. Just from our custom scraper that we used in Google Maps, we were able to find 13,000 companies that only do wound care in the US specifically. And this I think for state-wise, we have Alabama and we have a few other states too, like California. So this covers the entire US, and these are only wound care clinics. So super targeted, hyper specific, and this is something that you cannot just build via Apollo or LinkedIn Sales Nav search. The other thing is that most of these companies and clinics, you can't find their contact info because they're not even on LinkedIn. So you would be struggling to even if you had the scrape results from Google Maps, you can't even put it into Apollo to do email enrichment because these companies don't exist and there's no data records on them. So how would you get in contact with them? Well, in our case, we built a second scraper that would also grab the support email on all their sites. So let me show an example of an output that we would get from this. So for example, you can see in this list, we have their public emails that we've scraped. And you can see they're all .info. And you'd be surprised how responsive these inboxes are. And a lot of times for these companies, even mid-sized or small businesses, so teams larger than 10 to 50, the founder themselves or the CEO are monitoring the .info inbox actively. So if you're emailing .info, you're essentially emailing the founder. And this is a very good method to get in contact with these local businesses, and you get super high response rates because they don't get a lot of marketing and sales cold emails. So that would be an example of how you would build a list for an industry or a company that does not exist on Apollo or LinkedIn. You're probably overestimating how many reachable targets exist in places you're looking and underestimating how many exist in the places you're not looking at. Now I've showed you how to capture the most out of the quote unquote unreachable market that people can't tap into. And now you might be asking, well, there's only 13,000 still ideal customers, even with the unconventional type of outreach and list building. What happens if I burn through it, and how would you approach it? Very good question. So typically speaking, when we approach these highly targeted niche-based lists, back to the wound care example, let's say you only target wound care clinics across the US, we could only get 13,000, and that's your total TAM. That's, first of all, a bit small because typically speaking, you want lists larger or TAMs larger than 100K to probably do campaigns. But we've dealt with these scenarios where the TAM is under 50K. And in this scenario, how we typically approach it is a combination of multi-channel, but also more frequent inbox rotation and inbox alias creation count. What does that mean? So those are two main components. Number one, omni-channel is you would not only do one channel like email, but you also add in like SMS, or since they're not on LinkedIn, that's not an option. So we could do email outreach and also SMS outreach, but in sequence. So let's say you blast through this list with email month 1, month 2, or halfway through the second month, you would do only SMS. So you give that TAM some breathing room across emails. And then after SMS is done, you should have enough leeway to go back to email with a new pitch, a new offer, and a different angle to make your approach and email sound different. Second thing I wanted to mention is the alias inbox creation. This really gives you multiple shots at your TAM, especially if it's small. So what happens is after, let's say, a month of you blasting emails across the entire TAM, because if your send volume is like 1,000 per day, you can blast through this TAM within a month. On month 2, you would start with SMS to give you some breathing room, but also buy new inboxes with new names. That's different from your old batch. And then after your SMS completes, your inboxes have warmed up and you can use the new names to blast that same TAM and same list with a complete different approach and copy. So not only do you have new copy and new offer, but also a new set of names sending emails out on your behalf. So what you're on the receiving end of your prospects or ICPs, they'll see a new person and a new offer, and they will have no idea it was from the same company. Because honestly speaking, do you remember what the last cold email you received was? Just top of your head. You probably don't. So if it's the new name, new offer, there's no way you'll burn your TAM by doing that over and over again for continuous months. There you go. So in this video, we covered the discovery layer of list building, but the list is only the starting point. What you do with it after is a whole separate problem. How you enrich it, clean it, turn it into a campaign that actually lands something most outreach systems aren't built to handle. Now, if you want to see how we built the full system from list through campaign, click the video on the screen right now. It goes deeper into every layer that has to work before your outreach can do its job. And if you want us to come in and build this for your business, the link to book a call is down below. We'll map your real TAM, identify where your best targets are actually sitting, and give you the list building system that finds the companies your competitors have not even touched. Link is below. So here's what you know now. If you're list building and only looking where everyone else is, you're building the same list everyone else is as well. Every campaign you run from a saturated list lands in an inbox that's already full because your competitors found those same contacts the same way you did. The outreach gets ignored because a list was never the right starting point. When the discovery is right, the list is right, and when the list is right, the outreach reaches companies that haven't heard from your competitors just yet. Now, that's the difference between fighting for attention in a crowded inbox and being the first credible voice a prospect has heard.